We're going to do a review of the NeckBeard2, and sorry it's taken a while, but there hasn't been the best of surf, so the review is going to have some mediocre surf in it. But the NeckBeard2, board by Channel Islands, the NeckBeard is mostly known for this little tail. And in the NeckBeard 1, very similar, but I think the differences are they moved the wide point front from center on this second version. And they changed the bottom a little bit. I think the old one had a double concave, now this one is single, and the single starts right about here and goes all the way through. And then out the back, the old had a V, and now this one is just flat. So those are the primary differences. I don't know why mine only came with 3 boxes. I read somewhere that it was supposed to have 5, but the reality is I think I would only ride it as a thruster anyway, so maybe it's good, cut down on some of the weight. This particular one is the 5.6. It is 19 inches wide, and it is 2 5/16 thick. And here's the foil. I don't know if you could see that. Again, one thing I really do like about the board is that it's super light. This is the Spine Tech, so it's an epoxy board, and I'll post a picture, but it's funny because they were showing some PUs next to some Spine Techs and how much lighter this board is in the beginning. And then unfortunately, like all epoxies, they turn yellow. I guess it's very similar to PU, the way they constructed this. It's not that durable, but that's not a bad thing, you know. I personally don't like pressures on the deck like this. But what it tells you is that the board's got some flexibility to it, and you want the board, you know, especially if it's a performance board, to have a little flex and softness to it. If you notice, I don't know if you can tell from the video, but the rails are kind of a medium rail. It's not too pinched, so it's actually a little forgiving. The board is meant for, it says knee to head high waves, and I think that's kind of a real broad generalization, because a knee-high wave at Bolsa is probably different than a knee-high wave at somewhere like Trestles or even Newport. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the California coastline and the breaks, you know, Trestles is a medium performance type wave, whereas Bolsa Chica is a very soft wave, and then Newport is a sandbar, but that it gets a little bit more steep. And the reason I'm making the comparison between the three is, one thing about this board is that I found that it works really well in steeper waves. So whether it's 1.5 feet, 2 feet steep, you know, comparing that to, let's say, a 4 foot, you know, slopey wave, I'd much rather have a 2 foot wave, even a 1 foot wave, if it's steep. You know, obviously it's not meant to be a groveler. All in all though, I have to say it felt natural. You know, a lot of times you get on a board and it takes you a long time to get used to it. This board, you know, right when I got on, it felt okay. I'm not gonna say it felt great, but it did feel okay, and the adjustment period was very short. So that's, I think, important, because there are boards you get on and 6 weeks later, after 6-7 sessions, you still haven't gotten used to it. And I've had a couple of those before in the past. But this particular one, maybe took me about 3 sessions to get used to it. And, you know, funny thing is, then I jumped off and went on to another board. So I probably have to get used to it again. But again, there's the outline. It's a very interesting board. Something awesome about this tail, you know, and one of the things that they point out is that this is an air tail. I believe as the water comes off, there's no curve here to pull on the board. So one thing I noticed about a lot of my other boards, I'm not an air guy and I'm terrible at it, so I lack the technique. But the things I feel when I try to do an air is, I could have all this speed, and I will tell you that I go faster on my seaside, my Firewire seaside, in the slopey conditions. But as soon as I'm about to launch, the one thing about the seaside is I feel like something's grabbing my board as I'm lifting off. I didn't get that with this board. I didn't try too many airs, but something about this tail, I think, even with my bad technique as I was launching, there was no slow up, like literally no drag. It just went right off at full speed. So I actually tried to do this air where I thought, okay, I'm gonna probably get about 2 feet off the top. And I probably launched about a good 4 to 5 feet off the top of the wave. So I went ahead and kicked out of that, but it was really cool because this board just is a flying machine. So if you're into airs, this is it. I'm not, so, but at the same time, it's kind of cool having the ability to kind of flick that tail out. So I'm gonna work on my airs, and this is probably the board I'm gonna work on trying to pull on. So hopefully this is the magic board that gets me there.
So now let's look at some waves together. And I said that this particular board works well in steep waves, and even though these waves are small, top to bottom, they're pretty steep. Most of it's vertical, and you could tell by the way I'm pumping it that I'm getting a lot of action off the fins and the rails of my board. So this is day 1 of testing. Now this is day 2, and mind you, these are separate weekends. That's why it's taken so long. But this wave here is probably the steepest of day 2, and you'll see why the steep waves tend to be better. So I was able to get a nice turn. Then it got a little slopey, so I got, slowed me down. Second good turn, and then my last kind of check off the lip. I don't know what you want to call that. But the rest of this day, it's been pretty, as you could tell, it's really slopey. There are moments where it does get steep, but to be in that section was kind of difficult. This is probably the steepest I got right here, and I probably should have just launched right off the top right there, but I missed the corner, came up too slow off the bottom, read it wrong. So as you can see, it's cleaner, and the board works well when it's a little bit steeper. The one thing is I'm very heavy front-footed, and on account of the width in the front being a little bit narrower than, let's say, the seaside of the Glazer, I tend to dig more rail. So I'm not going to show you all the times I've dug a rail, but all in all, when it gets steep, I get good maneuvers. So this board is really fun, and I think I'm going to keep it. I was actually originally going to sell this after I reviewed it, but now I'm going to keep it because, one, I want to learn how to do an air, proper air. I've done credit card airs before. By credit card means just barely off the top where you could slide a credit card underneath my board. So I've done those before, straight airs, never done a reverse. I think this board's going to get me there. And in fact, I'm going to do a series of videos where we're going to learn how to do an air together. Really liking this board. This is day 4 now, and it's as you can tell, it's a much cleaner day, but it's also way slopier. So it's just a harder board to surf when it's like that because it doesn't have the width, and it's got a little bit more rocker. So still fun. I mean, you can look. If I was a better surfer, if I was a stronger, legged surfer, then I think I could push through all these flat sections. But I'm looking at this from my skill set, and you're going to have to do the same. You're going to have to compare your skills to mine and then determine whether or not this board is something that you might want in your quiver. I I don't think there's ever a quiver killer. You know, you could call it that, but the reality is why would you confine yourself to one board? It's literally like saying I'm gonna go golfing and taking one club. You want the variety, and yes, you want a minimum. You don't want a bag. You know, you don't want a quiver of 18 boards, but it'd be nice to have 3 or 4, right? Super groveler, performance, maybe a performance board and a step up, something like that. So now in terms of fin choices, I was running the Mick Fanning neocarbons, which are kind of a plasticky fin. It's one of their softer fins, FCS that is. And I didn't like it in the bigger waves because it hummed. It actually whistled, and it was super annoying. I do have the Mick Fanning performance cores, which I'll probably switch to for bigger days. I probably didn't cover everything, so I apologize if I missed anything. So the last part is, if you haven't seen my Surf Ranch video, the Kelly Slater wave pool, go ahead and look at that because I'm riding this particular board. And the one thing I did notice on my backside bottom turns, I would slip on occasion, and I don't know what was causing it, so I'm not really going to talk about it until I figure that out. So thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and let me know how you want me to format future reviews.